What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Rage Traders NRL Supercoach podcast. Wolfie here, and today we are starting our positional analysis series. And of course, we start from top to bottom, going with the hooker position. First of all, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you do enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, give a 5-star review. It really does help me out. All right, let's just get straight into this. So the way I'm actually going to do this series is I'm going, especially for this hooker position, is I've gone in from top to bottom and I've picked out positions that or players that I think are valuable and actually hold merit. I'm not going to talk about hooker players that I think aren't good picks. And this is obviously just my opinion. And for the comments below, you can obviously state someone that you think actually does hold some value that maybe I haven't mentioned. But that's how we're going to do it, and I hope you enjoy everything that comes from now to the end of this positional analysis series. All right, so let's get straight into it, yeah? Starting with the big dog, Blake Brayley. Now, as I actually thought and looked over stats a bit more, I'm actually kind of leaning more onto the point of either starting with Blake Brayley or Harry Grant. Now, let's speak about Blake Brayley, though, because he had a phenomenal season, and the last from opening round to sort of round 15, he was going okay. There was nothing crazy there. It was anywhere between, a 40 to a 60. But then from round 15, there was sort of a word that was said to him that we want you to run a bit more, be a bit aggressive, and he absolutely started tearing up. So over the season at 654,400 price now, but for last season, he had an average of 45 in base with 67 points in average, which is nice. But again, from round 15, he just basically started tearing up the league. He goes 102 points, 97 points, 48 against Melbourne, 117 against Dolphins, 108 against Sydney Roosters, a 59, 81, 63, 71, 84, 65. Now, I think it is a very, very plausible strategy to just say, I am going to plug in Blake Brayley, not worry about hooker, not care about doing any trades, having a cheapie in hooker 2 position, and just saying, I'm not going to worry about this position anymore, and go from there. Worry about the other positions in your team that actually make you a lot of money and actually are more valuable and valid. So one reason I love this with Blake Brayley is I don't think he's too overpriced. So at a 65 sort of ish price point, I think he can actually attain this. I think he can get anywhere. Let's just say he could average 60 in the season. I'd be willing to take that minor hit to have Blake Brayley in my team and not have to worry about switching my hookers or anything like that. Now, I really, really do love the Cronulla Sharks opening draw. Gold Coast at home, Penrith away, Dolphins at home, Canberra away, New Zealand at home, Roosters at home into a bye. That's a very nice draw. We don't know what type of team Canberra are going to be. Of course, Penrith, we will think they'll be, who they are. But the rest of these games, they can still run up a lot of points into. And Sharks aren't a bad team at all. And we know against, a lot of the weaker teams, they can just pile on a lot of points. I think there's a valid strategy where you just say, I'm plugging in Brayley, but I also do think there is a very high chance this season that Brayley could be the origin hooker. Now, that could be a wild statement to make, but if he continues in the form he had from round 15 onwards from last season, I wouldn't be shocked by that. Now, in saying that, if that's the case, doesn't then that mean he's still a great pick? Because that would mean he's in very good form, which then means you're making a lot of great points from him, and then he would just be a trade out during that origin period. If he can get to round 11, round 12, and serve you well for those first opening 10, 11 rounds, isn't that exactly what you want in a hooker, especially at a premium price? So that is something I'm really actually considering now, not having to worry about other hookers, which we'll get into. But Blake Brayley, to me, 654,400. If he was closer to the 700,000 mark, I would then be like umming and ahhing. I'd be like, that's way too much. But again, it is the hooker position. We know it isn't a high scoring position. So I'll leave that with you, whether you think you're paying up too much, or maybe just put it in the comments below what you think about Blake Brayley, whether you think he's a start or a complete wait. Next, we have Harry Grant. Now, I think a lot of things I said about Blake Brayley, you can also put into a category or the same category for Harry Grant. $606,300. If you actually look at him, it's gone to 2025, but I'll bring up Harry Grant from, sorry, I was on 2026, but Harry Grant from 2025, right? He 62-minute average in 76 minutes, okay? He's priced under that already. In 2022, he averaged 78 points. In 2023, he averaged 73 points. In 2024, he averaged 71 points. Now, in 2025, he had an average of 62. Is that drop-off just a mere unlucky type of season, a bit injury-riddled, a bit of unlucky scenarios for him, sin bins here and there? Is that just an unlucky season, and we take this as a golden gem and be like, Harry Grant for $606,300? Give it to me right now. So that's something you need to weigh up, but an average of 39 in base, obviously, as I said before, lowest average season in the last 4 seasons was 62. The thing that really worries me about Harry Grant in the last season, his 3 lowest scores were quite low, 25, 26, and 38. So is this a sign of a downturn? Is this a sign, of course, with Melbourne maybe being less strong as a team with no Eli Katoa, no Pappenhausen? Is this the sign of maybe like the dynasty slowly losing momentum? Or are they just going to be a team that scores a lot of points and lets in a lot of points? Because their defense wasn't up to par last season, in my opinion. I saw them leak a lot more points. And I think that Melbourne Storm really are going to have a bit more issues with defense. But again, that is just my opinion. But what does that have to do with Harry Grant? Well, he's going to be tackling a bit more. Maybe there's less attacking opportunities. And with Pappenhausen gone, maybe there is a bit less polish on the final play of like the play they set up. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But again, we know what he's capable of. We talk about his lowest scores, his highest score, 113. We know what he's capable of. But again, the only score he had in that season of 2025, which was over 100, was once against the Sydney Roosters in round 21. The closest he next came to that, looking now, was actually 86 points against Penrith. So that's great to see. He's done it against some high-tier opposition, but is the ceiling really, really there again? Is he really worth it? Now, in saying that, they do have quite a good draw, in my opinion. They have one of the best draws opening for the season. They have Parramatta at home, St. George away, Broncos at home, North Queensland away, Penrith away, New Zealand at home, Canberra away, Souths at home, Dolphins away, West Tigers at home. Like, that is a really nice draw. So when you weigh up Harry Grant compared to Blake Brayley, that's something that I'll let you decide. I'm not going to say who I think is better. I think both are viable. What scares me more, though, is I think Harry Grant has more of a chance to actually have a really low score in him, where I think Blake Brayley, just because he has a tiny bit of oomph to him, in my opinion, a tiny bit more base, a tiny bit more consistency, especially when a team that I think is really trying to apply themselves for a premiership. I mean, we know that Melbourne Storm are a team that are always there, no doubt whatsoever. But I think Cronulla Sharks have had their vast majority of chances to be an excellent team. and they always seem to go undone against the high-tier teams. And maybe this new season for Blake Brayley, where he now understands that he needs to run a bit more. He needs to be more of a core player for the team. He doesn't just need to facilitate. He actually needs to attack. Could this be the year of the Brayley? And I'm getting a feeling it could be. But again, that is my opinion. All right. Next, let's talk about someone who has moved from one team to another, and that is, of course, Sandon Smith. Now, Sandon Smith, he essentially moved from the Roosters to the Newcastle Knights, $506,200. The key question is with Sandon Smith is, where does he play? Now, if this guy's got hooker dual position in Supercoach, if he has the ability to even slot in hooker position at that price, but is playing as a 5'8" or a halfback for Newcastle, I'd assume he's playing 5'8". We'll have to wait and see. So many things can happen. He could legitimately be the hooker for Newcastle Knights. This is a wait and watch. But if he's in the sort of halves combo, I think it is a very, very sneaky hooker pick, and he could be certainly great. We know the capability he has. We know that he's an upcoming, I'm not going to say superstar, but I think he's an upcoming great player, close to a star. What he did last season with the Roosters was absolutely phenomenal when he got the opportunity. And it could be a great pick, and also quite low, $506,000 for someone that has the capability of going 129 against St. George, going 76 against Penrith. This is something you really like to see. Now, no doubt he has some low scores in him. 20 versus the New Zealand Warriors in 80 minutes, mind you. He's got a 29 in 80 minutes. So this guy's capable of a low score, but so is Harry Grant. And the difference is they're $100,000 different in price. So I think a cool combo could be having, a Cameron Munster in 5'8" and Sandon Smith in hooker position for your Supercoach team. That could be really nice. But again, we need to wait and see. They're going to be tinkering in the preseason. They're already tinkering now. Where does he fall? What position will it be? How many minutes does he get? Could he be someone that plays in the halves and then the game isn't going so well, so he moves to hooker and things change and there's a bit of chop and change? That might be the case, but we need to wait and see. All right, next, a lot of people have spoken about this gentleman. He's one of the most highly picked hookers at the moment. Reed Mahoney, coming from the Bulldogs, priced at $418,100 with an average of 43 points, 31 base in 61 minutes. Now, we have to take into consideration that towards the end of the season, he had a massive minutes drop off. So from round 23, he was playing 16 minutes, then 28 minutes, 12 minutes, 26 minutes, and then in the last round, he played 75 minutes. So that is going to affect his average, of course. So if this guy is priced at $418,100 with an average of 43 points with those type of minute reductions from what you can see here in the stats on NRL SC stats, and also in round 14, he's having subpar 60-minute games, even round 7. So that's something we've got to take into consideration. I think he is a great pick and a very safe pick. Whether he is someone that is consistently going to get 55 to 60 points, I don't think. I think his mark will be around the 50-point mark. But if you say, I'll take that any day of the week, then pick him. Now, the one thing we have to worry about here is Sonny Luke has now signed with the Cowboys. Whether he gets put into the starting team on the bench, whether he just gets shafted and sat in the background until they're unhappy with Reed Mahoney or how the Cowboys are performing, we don't know. But we have to be aware that Sonny Luke is now signed in, a backup hooker, and that is a potential scare for Reed Mahoney. So we have to know that is coming. But if Sonny Luke isn't starting, if Cowboys get off to a good start, you are absolutely laughing, because I dare say you will not be losing money with Reed Mahoney unless he has some type of spontaneous injury that comes out of nowhere and is quite unlucky. All right, next, let's speak about another similar pick to Reed Mahoney, and that is Jake Simpkin. Now, Jake Simpkin, He is a great player that just needs more minutes. Now, I've written down here $422,700 with an average of 43 points in 56 minutes. But in the last 5 games of the season where he got 80 minutes in all 5 games, he averaged 50 points. So for someone that averaged 50 points in those 80 minutes of the last 5 games, is that enough for you to take him? Because off the data here, 43 points, 56 minutes, if he's only getting 50 points in those full 80-minute games, is that enough to warrant you starting with him? New halfback, a team that you don't know how they're going to perform, maybe because he knows he's now the starting fullback. Starting fullback, he wishes. Starting hooker, maybe there's a bit more energy to him, but that is something I just wanted to make aware to you. It's going to be very, very interesting. He doesn't have too much sort of pressure on his back. I think it's Carl Lawton that's there as well. But again, I wouldn't say there's someone there that's really pressuring him like maybe others have, maybe in other scenarios that we'll get into a bit soon. Even now that Sonny Luke got signed to the Cowboys, surely Reed Marnie goes, here we go again. I really have to perform. Maybe that Sonny Luke signing is a kick up the bum for Reed Marnie even more, and he plays even better. So that's something we have to monitor, but that's the same with Jake Simpkin as well. Now, again, he's still playing for a good Manly side. He's still quite cheap, and I think he's a great pick, and I wouldn't be surprised if people either go Reed Marnie or Jake Simpkin to be super safe for their hooker 1 and then a cheapie for hooker 2. All right, next I have to mention him, Reece Robson. Now, the biggest question mark with Reece Robson, well, maybe we'll say his price first, $497,400. Average of 75 minutes for an average of 51 points with the Cowboys. He now comes over to the Roosters. The biggest question is 1, minutes. 2, how much does Connor Watson affect him? And 3, is he really even worth it at his current price tag if he averaged 51 points in 75 minutes for Cowboys? Now, the only sort of thing I can argue against that is that he is now playing for a much better team, in my opinion, which is the Roosters. He could have more scoring opportunities. He could have more try assist opportunities. He could have a lot more running opportunities. So that is something we need to monitor. But again, with Connor Watson in the fray, with people that can come in and just slip in and be like, Robson, you've done well. We need to try and get some more energy in. Have a rest for 30 minutes. We'll see you next week. That is what scares me about the Reece Robson pick. Now, if you want to take a risk, go for it. I don't think he is the pick we should be looking at unless he looks absolutely crazy good in preseason, dominating, and he looks like he's slotted in 70, 80 minutes. Sure, let's do that. But without that, I could not go there. But you might want to go for it. You might believe in it, and that's exactly why he's on this list. All right, so they're the main hookers I think we should all be looking at and either picking one of them. Now, I've got a watch list for cheapy hookers here, and I'm going to get into that straight away. Now, one we definitely have to mention, Bailey Hayward for the Canterbury Bulldogs. Now, Bailey Hayward's priced at $343,900. He could easily be your hooker 2. He could easily be your hooker 1 if you're crazy. But the thing is now with Reed Marnie gone, he is going to be the front runner for the hooker position. Does Gordon Cham Kum Tong eat some minutes for him? How is that going to look? Maybe he only gets 50 or 60 minutes and another hooker comes on. That is something we need to see. However, this guy has the ability to score points in a very, very good team. But there's some games that worry me about him, but there's some games that look really promising. I mean, this guy scored 51 points in 68 minutes against Melbourne. But again, we know what position he's been playing. This is a hooker position. This is a position that can be very low in points, but is someone we just need to watch list. We need to see how he performs in this hooker position. We need to see if it's consistent minutes and whether he gets affected by others from the bench or on the team. So it's going to be really interesting now to see with the rule changes, maybe with having a bit extra on the bench, with having people that can take over like utility positions or just be a utility player that can take over more positions, how this affects these kind of cheapies that we have sitting in the hooker 2 position. Okay, next I have Matt Arthur from the Newcastle Knights. Now, this is a very, very scary pick. This is a very scary watch, $235,600, but he is a complete wait and watch because it's all dependent on what the coach, Justin Holbrook, decides. You've got Crossland still in the team, Sandon Smith still in the team. You've got people that can just take over this role of hooker in the matter of a second, a quick switch and call from the coach, and you've just lost the player in the hooker and they're on the bench. I think he's just a complete watch, but we need to know that he is there in the team. We need to know that there is a possibility he could fill that role depending on how Newcastle play. I don't think he'll be doing that, but we need to just be aware of it. All right, last but not least, Brandon Smith from the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, there's a big question mark of where does he play and how long does he play? $235,600. Again, similar to Matt Arthur, just a pure watch. Now, we know his capability. We know what he can do. But is he really worth the risk? Now, against Gold Coast and Parramatta, 23 and 24, and that means round 23, round 24, sorry, not the year. In 57 minutes, he scores 39 points. In 58 minutes, he scores 38 points. He's got the capability of getting a base over 25 points with ease. So this guy, I don't think he'll be playing more than those minutes, to be honest with you. But do you live with that for a hooker 2 position? Do you take a risk on a Bailey Hayward? Do you just go for the Matt Arthur and take a real big risk? Or you just sit tight with Brandon Smith and say, look, I'm happy with a 30 plus from this guy. He'll sit there for the season. I don't need to worry about him. So that's something that I think we just all need to watch and just maintain that we are just keeping a close eye on these players through the preseason. That is your hooker analysis. I hope you've enjoyed everything I've gone through there, guys. To be honest with you, I didn't want to mention anybody else that I didn't really truly believe in. But if there is a hooker that you are like, wow, okay, you didn't mention him. How couldn't you have mentioned this hooker? Maybe it's a Wade Egan from New Zealand Warriors. Maybe it's someone else. Tom Starling again from the Canberra Raiders. Let me know in the comments below. We'll have a chat. We'll talk it out. And thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Wolfie from the Rage Traders. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.